Welcome and thank you so much for joining today's panel in celebration of Native American Heritage Month. My name is Kyle Tribble and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Culture and Engagement in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here at the School District of Philadelphia. And I am very excited and honored to moderate today's panel. The goal of today's panel is to have a community conversation that honors authentic narratives within the Native American community, celebrates cultural diversity, and promotes cultural education. Joining us for the discussion today are representatives from the Native American House Alliance, also known as NAHA. We have Cornelia, Dimalanta, and Peter Brooks. Also joining us today, we have Jack Johnson, who serves as the president of the Museum of Indian Culture in Allentown. And we also have representatives from the Indigenous Peoples Day Philly Incorporated, Mabel, Negrete, and Mr. Eugene Black Crow. Thank you all for joining us. And before I jump in, I just want to give a little bit more detail about our panelists for today. Cornelia is an activist, a grandmother, a citizen of the state-recognized Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, and serves as the co-founding president of the Native American House Alliance right here in Philadelphia. Thank you for joining us, Cornelia.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. We also have Peter here. Peter is a descendant of the Choctaw Band of Indians from Maryland, the historical Piscataway chiefdom, Piscataway. Thank you, Peter. Chiefdom. He is a commissioner of the Indian Affairs of the state of Maryland, and was recruited by NAHA to help form a commission right here in Philadelphia. So thank you for joining us, Peter.
Thank you. And so in Lenape, we say Wanishi. Thank you, Wanishi. Wanishi, that's the language of the land where Philadelphia is. Nice,
nice. Thank you for that. We also have joined us in our panel, we have Jack Johnson. Mr. Johnson is enrolled member of the Delaware Nation, Endarco, Oklahoma, Nation of Endarco, Oklahoma, a federally recognized tribe. He's the president of the Museum of Indian Culture in Allentown, and a member of the Native American House Alliance. So thank you, Mr. Johnson, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Wanishi also.
Absolutely. So we also have Mabel joining us. Mabel is a native Chilean and the executive director and co-founder of Indigenous Peoples Day Philly. So thank you so much, Mabel. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Gracias. Ciao to me.
And without last but not least, we have Mr. Eugene Black Crow, who is an Ahota language warrior and an advisor to Indigenous Peoples Day Philly, and a citizen of the Ohio Sioux tribe in the Pond Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Blackwell. We appreciate it.
That's Ogallala Sioux.
Ogallala.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we definitely want to have this conversation be just that, a conversation amongst friends, and we're looking to learn a lot and share a lot of this information with our audience. But before we dive into the questions, I know last Tuesday was a great and historic day. I just wanted to know if anyone from the panel can just give us a little breakdown of what happened this Tuesday that just passed.
Oh gosh, we were all there, and that was the last time I think we met. But we were fortunate enough to be present for the introduction of Senate Resolution 374, which introduced November as Native American Heritage Month, nationally recognized. Pennsylvania is joining the national movement to recognize, and we were there for the inaugural process of it. And one of the members of Jack's tribe, a hereditary chief, flew all the way out here from Oklahoma to be a part of it. And it's one of the first times that we've ever been invited to the Senate as a sovereign or quasi-sovereign, semi-sovereign nation. And so seeing that was really moving for all of us, I think.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So just to jump into the conversation, I know that this panel is about education, and one of the first things we want to talk about is identity and what it means. So a question I have for the panel today is, how do you identify, and how has your identity shaped your work and also shaped your journey?
Well, I think with myself, I identify as a Lumbee tribal citizen. And the way that me being Lumbee has shaped the way that I have moved throughout my lifetime. There was a time where I didn't identify as being anything. And that was during the 50s and the 60s. When another Native American organization came along, which was United American Indians of Delaware Valley. That is when I started to learn about my tribal history. I knew that I was Native American. I knew what tribe I was from, but being here in Philadelphia, and there were not that many Native Americans around me at that time, you kind of live like ordinary people. I didn't know anything about, nothing really about tribal culture. I went down to the South once a year, and we took place in whatever ceremonies there was and visited family. But nothing like that was happening here. And when United American Indians came into place, that was a place where I really learned. I learned about my culture. I learned about my history. I also learned that being a part of their organization would become a passion of mine, because 30 years down the road, here I am with Native American House Alliance. And I'm following the footsteps of what I learned from all of them people there that was in the last organization. And I will have to say that I'm thankful for United American Indians of Delaware Valley and the people who work there.
I identify myself, as being a Native American. That's the correct term these days. Back in the day, being called Indian wasn't a derogatory comment. And of course, these days, now it is. So, like I said, Native American is what we're called today. And like I said, my journey, I think I kind of took that for granted. I grew up in Oklahoma, had a lot of relatives there and a lot of other different tribes there. And I moved to Florida. They did have some different tribes there, but they pretty much kept to themselves on their land, the Seminoles and the Miccosukee. And I moved up here in 2009, Philadelphia. And, really was, this was my ancestral homeland, as far as being a Delaware. Original name being Lenni Lenape, but that's kind of redundant as far as what it really stands for, original. So we'll keep it at Lenape. And they changed their name to Delaware because they couldn't pronounce it, the Europeans. So, but like I said, my journey, I grew up, like I said, learning my ways, my culture, and carry that on through life as of now still. And I am the president of the Museum of Indian Culture. And Delaware Nation is based in Anadarko, Oklahoma. And at the museum there in Allentown, they have a pilot office there for my tribe. And like I said, dealing with them and having the input from my tribe through that office, helps out a lot. Kind of validates the whole situation there at the museum. And the museum, has artifacts and displays of, the Delaware people and how they lived and tools they used and stories, of course, and books. And like I said, I worked for the city of Philadelphia for Parks and Recreation. I work at a recreation center, and I am the maintenance man. But here in South Philly, I mean, it's still, we got a football field, baseball field, it's outdoors, which I enjoy. And, to be outside and, do what I'm doing out there. And, my journey between that and dealing with the museum, really, I learned a lot since I've been out here. I mean, like I said earlier, I kind of took being Native American for granted until I came out here, like I said, ancestral homeland, a lot of history for me here, my tribe. So like I said, being here, living here, I've learned a lot, kind of tuned up on my history of my tribe and working with the museum. I'm an avid speaker for the museum on Lenape history and spoke at some universities and some other groups since 2010. And like I said, it's been a journey. It's been a really learning experience, living out here in my ancestral homeland.
So in my experience, well, because first of all, I'm Chilean. I migrated in '88. We're part of an exodus of many Chilenos that left the country because of the dictatorship. So and just like what happened in Argentina, I grew up primarily as a mestiza chola. Chola means like in both Mapo, Sunguno, Quechua means like somebody of both indigenous and in European heritage, or mixed biologically. And then coming here to the United States, I have always lived in neighborhoods that are primarily in California, of Central American, Mexicanos, very indigenous base. And my experience with Native American started also in California, in the West Coast, San Francisco Bay Area. And I was very much involved more with the Chicano movement because there was some, I guess, a similarity in because there's intermixtion of like Spanglish and all the other ways in which we exist as urban people. But it became more clear to me about our cultural, I would say, some of the similarity, but also my own identity within the United States. More, how would say, poignant, where I needed to be more outspoken, and more upfront in the last, I would say, 10 years or so, because I felt that there was a lot of connections between the discriminations that people they're experiencing from the South, or coming from the South, living here in the United States, and then the Native communities here, regarding like incarceration issues about discrimination, issues about racism, all kinds of things that are experienced in the urban center, primarily because I live in the urban center. And then also the erasure, and as became more aware, in fact, even within the prison activism, I became more conscious when I was advocating for, issues about incarceration. Sometimes I will mix, even myself, I would think, oh, this is like Chicana, because that was my view of, Native people. And then I was like, oh no, that's actually somebody from like the Lakota, or somebody from another nation within the United States. And so it was a slow process for me to realize that it was really interesting, the level of erasure that we experience as Indigenous of the Americas within the United States. And that was like sort of a pivotal moment where I was like, something going on, we're being tossed, we've been put so many identities on us that it's kind of becoming even more confusing. So I come from more like my experience being here and joining the movement of Indigenous rights. It comes from this sort of like continental experience that I have because of have experienced living here. I've been exposed to people from different regions, not only United States, but also from primarily a lot from Mexico, and also people from Canada. So so in that sense, that has shaped me also as a person, a human being, in contemporary times. And and now we're here in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. When I moved here 12 years ago, the first thing I started asking some of my Mexicanos friends or other people around it, or even Tainos, Bericas, I was like, where's the Native community? I was like, and some of them pointed me to that direction and they were pointing me to this direction. And I was like, what's going on here? Anyway, so in 2016, by coincidences of life and because of the Standing Rock movement that happened in North Dakota, brought many of us together. Like, I guess it was like our heart or our instinct or like desire to kind of like figure out how to support each other, but also to support the movement. We have an organizing meeting in the city, which I was one of the leaders among them. And while we had allies, there was like a whole bunch of people around us like, oh, where does this people come from? There's some of them like, and so there was like Taino, there was Puras, there were Lakotas, there was like people from the Iroquois, Confederacy. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. Oh, Maya, so then that's where I was like, it brought us together in an interesting way. And then by 2017, by that time we had already created, founded like Indigenous 215, which was a collective of also Native American Indigenous folks from the Western Hemisphere that started trying to bring awareness. And one of our first events within the city was at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, when we started the first Indigenous Peoples Day. And along that, we were very clear and conscious that we needed to bring start bringing the Lenape to the territory, because we were already already getting an understanding that there was something that happened here that it was not correct. And so anyway, so to make it short, I'm going to speak more later, but for my own sort of place in this city of Philadelphia, my people coming from very far away, of the continent, it's the experience that, well, on one end, it's challenging because within the Latin American community also we experience an enormous amount of erasure because of the dominant culture, and it's very Eurocentric. So our narratives tend to be also undermined, or we also experience a lot of self-oppression, and so I relate to even what Cornelia was saying about like not able to speak, or not having the words to say, or even assert in a certain situation where you feel it was unfair, to say, wait a minute, you're speaking about our people, and so anyway, so that's sort of like a way of like, and so right now I'm still, a chola, in the north side of the Americas.
Nice. Thank you so much for that, Mabel. All great information. Peter, I see that you that a lot of what Mabel and Cornelia seems to resonate with you. What are your thoughts just on identity, and just how has that shaped your working journey?
One of the things that I did want to say, once that organization closed down, a whole generation of people missed out on learning and education and culture. This organization here is so important because we not only have the second generation of people to teach, but we have to teach their parents also, because they lost that.
That's right.
So, and if we don't do it, then we're killing ourselves off. This has to be done.
Yeah, it's a form of genocide. And we need advocates, people watching this thing, to help us to get these things done, because it's very, very important. And, I'll tell you my story. I mean, I was born along the Potomac River, and all the people who were born where I was born in that area were loyal to the Piscataway Tayac. And then another group of people came and they said that we had to be loyal to them. And we are loyal to them. We pay our taxes and obey the law, and we promote the general good being and welfare of the people around us. But we can also be loyal to our TIAC, our tribal leader who is regional for the area where we are born. And so that is what I do, because it's not just, a racial thing. You can be any race at all, and still support the Indigenous leadership wherever you are. And when I was growing up, we grew up in Black communities. My family always told us we were Black. And if I went home from school and said to my mom, they all call me white boy. They all say I'm white. She'd say, you're Black. And I'd say, but are we white? She'd say, no, you're Black. Well, are we Native American? She'd say, no, you're Black. Are we from the islands? No, you're Black. So it was always cut off for us. But we had the last name. The family retained the last name, Proctor, which is a large Piscataway name. And the only way we could trace that name for our family was back into the 1830s in Damascus, Maryland. And so we don't have a tribal history. Even the tribe that we have in Maryland has no federal recognition, just has state recognition. But we're still, one people. And so you take the time to learn these things and learn them in a good way. And it doesn't matter, like I said, where you come from, and you don't have to tell people you're something you're not just to fit in. Just be yourself, but approach in a good way, in the way that you hear the elders and the people speak to you. And so that's why I always try to let my elders speak first, so that I know which way to go based on what they've said.
Thank you for that, Peter. Very wise words. We definitely appreciate it. Does anyone else want to chime in just around that conversation of identity and how your identity shapes your work and your journey?
I'll say a few words here. When can you hear me?
Yep,
Can you hear me?
Mr. Black Crow.
Okay. Yeah. When I was growing up, I only thought there was two races of people, the white people and us Indians, because when we was growing up, my mother and father, and a couple uncles and his wife, or one of the wives, and then my grandma, we used to travel from work site to work site off the reservation, just like that movie Lumbaba. We go to where the jobs were. My parents would go potato, and it depends on the season where the jobs were. We'd be at the farm. We'd be camped behind the farm, and out in the potato fields or the corn fields or the apple orchard, or wherever the jobs were. And my parents were working there, and then it was just me and my older brother and my two older sisters, and we all somebody had a station wagon, so we was all in there all the time. We was going from job site to job site until I was old enough to go to school. My older students went to school first, so they went one by one, and then pretty soon there was more of us, so they had to settle down, and then they put me in the boarding school next, and then there was only out in Pine Ridge, back in the 50s and early 60s, there was only we had white teachers, and we never seen any other race, because there was only white and Indians there in Pine Ridge at the time. My tablet kept going off and on, so but where I left off, when we went out to boarding school, that's when we started looking at books and learning that other people were around besides us, Indian and white. There's colored people, and there's Japanese people, and there's other Indians. And when we first seen a Black man, me and my cousin, my brother I grew up with, we went to Basin on a horseback ride. Then we went to the store. Then we come out of there. Then we seen a big truck pull up. Then truck opened up and a big black guy jumped out of there. And it scared me and my brother because we never seen a black guy, you know, because we was used to seeing just white people. So we rode horses back home about 7 miles. And we told our grandpa. Our grandpa said, we told him, we said, hey, we've seen another man that was, you know, black, you know. And, you know, well, he said, well, there's a whole bunch of them around. He said, but you'll see other people too. He said, there are yellow people and there are green people. So, you know, our minds raced, you know, we pictured yellow people and green people too, you know. Well, anyway, after we went to boarding school, we started listening to history class and what do you call that, geography, and we started learning about other people, you know. So that's how we figured out we was Indians or Native Americans, but we was a certain tribe, the Oglala Lakota tribe, you know. During school, the teachers asked us, you guys know what kind of tribe you are from? I think I was in first grade.
Mm.
And we didn't know, so the teacher told us, you guys are the Oglala Lakota tribe. You guys are the ones who annihilated Custer, you know, killed up the whole white people, the whole 200 and something, the whole cavalry. So that made us proud, you know, because, you know, we started, you know, I had a pretty good feeling back then, you know, because, you know, you said everybody thought that Lakota, the Oglala tribes were the one of the baddest tribes on the United States, because we had Chief Crazy Horse and we had Chief Sitting Bull, you know, Touches the Cloud and all those others, Red Cloud, Chief Red Cloud, you know. He said we was the only Indian nation that defeated the United States government. And then we had the flag. We annihilated Custer and then we had the flag. We took the United States flag from them, so we have the flag. Mm-hmm. So to this day, we still have that flag. There are 36 stars on it, I think. We put it out every June 25th and have that's when they annihilated Custer, June 25th, 1876, 77, 76, and that's when they annihilated them. So every year, that time they have a little celebration, or a big celebration, I should say, and they have that reenactment there at the Little Bighorn. So every year, that time they have that reenactment there. I only went there one time and it was awesome, man. All those horses charging, the whole ground was thundering, Indians war whooping and guns going off, you know. You know, they all had the blanks in their guns, so you know you won't hurt nobody. But the year I was there, there's one of the cavalry actors fell off his horse, and the horse was dragging them. And all the bunch of Indians standing there, the horse was coming towards all the Indians jumped up and jumped on that horse, wrestled that horse down, and wrestled that cavalryman's foot off that stirrup. And then Fly for Life came over and took him away. You know, and later on we heard that he passed away. But anyway, through high school we was taught that, you know, in the boarding school we was taught not to speak English. You know, we got hit when we spoke Lakota, our own language. You know, and I stayed at the boarding school for about 4 years. You know, all those years, and we just because I grew up speaking Lakota all the way till I went to boarding school. Then I started learning English. And then when I was in 4th grade, it was about 1966, and my mother bought a bigger house on the reservation. So we got to go home to the house, and then we went to grade school from there to Baseline, 7 miles away. We bused to school from there. And, you know, it was way better because, you know, we could speak our own language if we wanted to, whenever we wanted to, you know. We only spoke English when we went to school, but, you know, we could still speak Lakota to our friends and whoever, you know. And then I was there the 4th, 5th, and then to the 8th grade, I graduated there. Then I went back to the boarding school because that was the only place they had the high school on the reservation. When I went back to, you know, between those 4 years, they passed that Indian Freedom Religion Act, which gave the Indians the authority to practice their own sweat lodges and sun dances and all of that in the open. You can do that in open then. Before 67, everything was done, you know, way out in the San Hills or way out where people will know. So we kept our history and our culture going that way. All our Sundance songs, all our Inipi songs, our sweat lodge songs, and our ceremony songs. We kept them all hidden and practicing them on the back. But when that Freedom of Religion Act from Congress passed, you know, everything we're doing in the open. When I went to boarding school in the 9th grade, they started teaching Lakota language there. And, you know, it surprised me because, you know, 4 years earlier, we were getting beat up for speaking our own language at that same school. And when I went 4 years later, I went back to high school there. They were teaching Lakota language, you know. It was kind of a shock to me. But, you know, I already knew how to speak fluently, so, you know, that was good. I started helping all these people that didn't know how to speak Lakota. I started helping them, you know. And then when I got into college, you know, they told me back then that there was only about 25,000 Lakotas on the reservation, and out of that, only a third of them were speaking the language fluently. And we were losing our language a little at a time because of the boarding schools. So that's what inspired me to start teaching Lakota language. So to this day, I'm still doing that. So anyway, it was quite an experience, you know, and they're suppressing us to speaking our language, to encouraging us to do it now, you know. So, you know, a lot of people my age are older that went to boarding schools or Catholic boarding schools, you know. They're not, they just speak English, you know. They whip the language out of them. So a lot of them my age, you know, they speak English and they know a few words of Lakota. So anyway, I have a young kid from back home calling me almost every day just to speak Lakota because he's learning.
Yeah.
So a question for the group. I did hear some conversation just around tribes. Could you take some time to like give our audience a description of what a Native American tribe is and how tribes function within the U.S.?
Well, according to the United States, there are two different sets of tribes. There's a federally recognized tribe and there are state tribes. The federally recognized tribes are those tribes that lived on reservations and actually were put on reservations. The government went on to name them as federally recognized. And they are pretty much run by their own government, but they are overseen by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And if I'm wrong at any point, Peter or Jack, please jump in there and say you're wrong. I can't answer too much for the federally recognized tribes, but for the state recognized tribes, which I am, my tribe has its own government. We have our own school system. We have our own clinics going on. We have our own housing. With my tribe, we are partially federally recognized from the 1950s. So it's kind of hard to answer the question of what the government thinks about us or what people think about us when you mentioned that you're state recognized versus being federally recognized, because we actually do get a lot of the perks as the federally recognized Indians because of our partial recognition. But it is up to our tribal leaders to explain to us how the tribe works, explain to us who we have to listen to, as Peter's saying that if you're Native American and a tribal citizen, either from state or federal, you live between a tribe and the United States government. If the United States government says the law is this way, then we have to follow that law. As Peter said, I pay my taxes. I do everything that the United States law tells me to do. And I believe that my state tribe tells me the same thing. But if some point in my life that my tribe says, listen, you can't do this, you can't do that, then I have to listen to my tribe.
That's right.
My
That's what
honor
makes us
is
different.
to my tribe first.
That's right.
And that's just the way that it is.
That's right.
Because if my tribe fails, then 60,000 members fail. And that's a lot of people. And I can't afford to let my tribe fail because the generations that come after me will be lost. Can you beam in on that any, Peter?
Well, yeah, that was really, really compelling and true. And so, yeah, that's the complexity of it. And we feel one with the tribe, and that's who we are accountable for. That's what makes us different. And if if there's isn't a tribe or something, you can also join an organization called the American Indian Movement. You can be a supporter of it, no matter what race you are. And here again, you have a certain loyalty to that organization, just as African Americans would to the NAACP. But it extends a little bit more because it's social and that kind of thing. But a tribe is, usually a people who are distinct based on language and geography, and perhaps culture or songs or other things may combine people to become a tribe. But it's very different from what you learn in European history. The tribes here were very fluid. They moved around a lot. A lot of people were related, to each other and had cousins and stuff. So it's not like Britain or Europe where you've got France and these are the French people, and Italy and these are the Italian people. In Native American history, those borders and stuff are a lot more fluid. Tribes are moving. They're not going too far, but they're staying close, and they go in circles and different patterns according to the traditions of the tribe. But basically, in the traditional way, it was the language. If you spoke Cherokee, you had no excuse for committing violence against someone with whom you spoke the same language. Therefore, you were Cherokee. If you spoke Lenape, you were Lenape. People wanted to know who your family was and that kind of thing. But there was a much more fluid citizenship and identity type of situation. And it played over into the military, where Europe has these huge military conflicts, Charlemagne, Alexander, Napoleon. You don't get that so much in Native American history because it wasn't about killing and taking the land as much as it was humiliating your enemy, counting coup against your enemy, becoming one of your enemy, and then returning back to your own people. That was the highest honor. And so it doesn't get into the history books, but those are the major accomplishments, in terms of tribal history and what it means to be a tribe, to be able to go and come in a totally different language and way of life and then return.
The Native American tribes, it always, beginning of time, for how we were created, what our beliefs are, and how, that all came about, is that we was all put in our certain places, red man, like they used to call us back in the day, were here, and then Africans and, Asians and everywhere. Everybody started in their own place. So with the Native Americans, my tribe, the Lenape, the Delaware, originated from here in New Jersey and Philadelphia and surrounding areas. And so they were, like I said, we'll get back to the name, like I said, Delaware, when the Europeans came over, they couldn't pronounce our name, and they had this, I don't know his title, but his name was Lord Delaware. And so they started calling us Delaware. And also we lived along the river, the Delaware River. So that's another reason why they called us the Delaware. But there was a community, a tight-knit community of relations and, brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. And there could be, anywhere from up to 30 to 100 members living together in, say, a village or a community. And they would hunt and fish and do their ceremonies together and carry out their traditions. And like I said, there would be, a leader. But the old saying is, there's always a woman behind the leader. And that still goes for today. And so anyway, the leader would make some decisions upon, either going to war with another tribe or anything like that, but they would consult with the women, that council. They always had to have a council. And so, like I said, the leader of the tribe, would consult with the women's council, and they would give, their 2 cents worth, and the leader would, think about it. And of course, whatever they pretty much said, that's what the leader would go by. And he would, put out the decision that was made to the tribal members, and that's what it was. Because, the land we walk on, is called, to us, Mother Earth. Everything comes from the earth. And like I said, being a mother, the woman in the tribe had, was way up there in the hierarchy. They were right beside the chief or the leader, and their decision mattered, their voice mattered. And so they were very respected in a tribal community, the women. And like I said, they all lived together. And as far as the Delawares and amongst other tribes, they traveled during the seasons. Like the wintertime, they would move down the river. Like I said, most of their foods was, fishing and hunting and growing, vegetables and stuff. And as far as the season would change, it would move up the river where, game was, a lot, and the fishing was better. So, like I said, they moved up and down the river depending on what season it was. The way of living, like I said, you had a leader, you had a council of women, you had what they say, a medicine man that, would take care of anybody that was sick. And they were, pretty much self-governed with, the leadership that they had. And like I said, other tribal members might come through the camp, and they would, treat them respectfully. And, this is how we learn information as far as other tribal members coming through their camp and sharing their stories and sharing what they've seen, past the land that we, reside at. And they would share stories of what they've seen and the different animals, that they've seen and so forth. But this is how, we communicated, that we shared stories, and there's stories and stories of, what happened back then. But like I said, we lived together. Some people might misconstrue how Native Americans lived. They did not live all in teepees. Lenape, built long houses, made out of wood and bark and mud. Always had a campfire and made, utensils and everything out of the wood, and, used our resources and respected what Mother Earth has given us. That's one thing, is that, you respect Mother Earth and all living things. And like I said, the tribes, the Native American tribes, live by that.
Thank you for that, Jack. Just one question, just with such a rich history and rich tradition, Can you speak on just the importance of preserving that culture, the traditions of the Native American community? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I was reading something the other day. Of course, November is Native American Heritage Month. And somebody said, quote, it was honoring the past and shaping the future. That goes a long way with, what we were taught and instilled in our livelihood, that everything has a purpose. And that, every little thing, everything, you have to respect it, because, the Creator put it on this earth for a reason. And like I said, most people go through their day-to-day lives not looking around, or not even, just passing by little things. And like I said, the Creator put the stuff on this earth for a reason. And that, like I said, the culture, I think there's going to be another question down the line, but it kind of coincides with that. But I grew up Indian. I grew up since I was 2. I started learning my dances and wearing my regalia at that age. I mean, there was times when my dad was a career military. He did 22 years in the Army. I'm the youngest of 7, and we traveled. I had a sister who was born in Germany when we were stationed there. A couple other siblings were born in California and Georgia. I was born in Kansas, and from Kansas, I think I was a year old, we moved to California. But when we was there, we were stationed in Fort Ord, California, and that San Quentin prison, I don't know how it all came about, but San Quentin prison, we put on a powwow there, because like I said, there's 7 of us kids, my mom and dad. So he was the announcer, the MC, and also the singer. And like I said, me and my brothers and sisters were dancers. And so at the prison, it was an outside event, and the fence divided us from them. And we put on a little powwow for them. And this was back about 1969. Oh, even, yeah, around there. So anyway, the prisoners at that time, they made these hats out of jeans. And so they had these jean caps. And I always remember growing up and looking in the china cabinet, there was like these 3 jean caps in there. I got a little older, and I asked about them, and they told me the story. Jackie was only, whatever, 2 years old, and we did this powwow for these prisoners at San Quentin prison. And they were so happy that they threw the caps over the fence. And, we took what we could get, and we had that. And then that big brown hat is a CO hat that was given to my dad. And they were so grateful, all the people there. And that was just the start of, our cultural, our beliefs and our dances and our culture, that it traveled back to Oklahoma, grew up in Oklahoma. And like I said, we had enough to make a powwow with my family. So different grades, we would put on a powwow at my sister's school, my brother's school. Most of the time we was all in the same school. They were. And we would, dance for them, and, sing and dance and share, our dances and our culture, and educate, the kids, and, what we believe in. And this is the colors that we wear, and these are the dances and the songs we sing. And there was a picture back for that powwow back in California. It was in the newspaper, and there I am in my stroller with my regalia on, drinking a bottle. That's how young I was. But, like I said, culture these days is being lost. People are kind of forgetting where they come from, and, forgetting that, where they're from, and, whether they believe in. like I said, being a Native American, I mean, it's hard for me not to, forget. I mean, you look around, you appreciate everything, the sun coming up, the trees and the change of the seasons, brings back memories, for me. Like I said, growing up in Oklahoma and going hunting out in the woods, and my dad teaching me things, my dad, telling me about this leaf here or this plant here you can use for this medicine, or, use the bark off this tree for this or that. And like I said, it's stories, it's education, but you got to have somebody to teach you. And, my father, passed away a long time ago. Some of my uncles and aunts, had passed away. And with that was the stories that, passed away with them. And, hopefully, you learn and listen at a young age to remember that stuff, because, with that, it goes, unforgotten, and you just, lost something that you're supposed to listen to. But it's so important, for, like I said, the events, we had the Indigenous Peoples Day at Penn Treaty Park, in which, the community was out there in the public and everybody, experiencing what we do, and, having, a good time doing it. And I spoke out there, shared stuff about myself and my tribe. And hopefully, people listen, because, like I said, that's the most important thing, is to listen, what's being told to you. Because you never know, you might be out in the wilderness and might be out country. You need to know something, this is what you need, and this will keep the mosquitoes away. And, I mean, there's all kinds of little things that you need to listen to. And I said, being a Native American, kind of sets us apart as far as, life skills and different things, to survive, because, that's what we did. We survived and went through harsh times, with the settlers coming over, but, we're still here, we survived.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All powerful information. And with that, I know many of you on this panel lead, advise, and support organizations in the area that are focused on educating the city of Philadelphia on the traditions of the Native American community. Could the group take some time to just speak to those organizations and speak to your mission, your vision, events, initiatives that help support the education of the city?
We do that. We do that. We do a lot of outreach where we put the word out of what we do. We go through the universities. I know Mabel probably goes through the universities also. Jack, in his position, I'm pretty sure that he gets to talk to quite a number of people. And of course, being the president of the board of Allentown Museum, he gets to speak to quite a few people. But we do pass the word, and we do help each other. We try our best to help each other. It's not like I'm against IPD Philly or they're against us. We join hands and try to work together. Well, you can see that right now. We work together.
That's right. And it's important for young people to know that's the tribal way, is for us to work together with each other as one family. And I'm going to tell you something. If you've never seen Indigenous Peoples Day Philly, I keep calling it Independence Day because that's what I'm looking forward to. It's like sovereignty. But Indigenous Peoples Day Philly is an absolutely breathtaking, epic, historic event. And schools come there to witness it, and they just love it because it's like traveling in time and space. When you do some of the South American and Latin, ceremonies and stuff, you're there, so go ahead, Mabel.
I would say that it was a real honor to actually, first of all, be here, and among like friends and colleagues and relatives, because well, from like I was explaining earlier, like what brought me to be here and be an activist, around our share experiences, so when it comes to Indigenous Peoples Day Philly Inc., like I said, we started it first. It was a very grassroots movement in the city. We started with an event, 3 hours event at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Then we move into the hunting park, and then finally we move into Penn Treaty Park. And it's the reason that we chose Penn Treaty Park is because in 2016 I went to New York and I met a couple Lenape leaders. One of them was Pauline. I forgot her last name, but it was one of the chiefs of the Delaware tribe of Indians in Oklahoma, who mentioned to me at the very end of that conference, it's like that she told me that the elm tree that they planted was like a sort of like a great child of the elm tree that used to be there. Was planted, and it was very significant. And she told me to actually look into it, to pay attention to it. So it was at that point that it was because of the history of the city that and because we want to bring attention to the Lenape history, but also to the Lenape who are living here today, across the United States, that it was very important location to start not only celebrating coming together, but also to bring awareness. And so last year and this year, finally we feel like we have reached that pivotal moment where it's not only like something that is just grassroots, but it's also have brought attention to the city. I'm very excited that actually even the Delaware nations, are here with us, because it's like, it was one of our dreams, and it's like, wow, it's happening. It's slowly, because like when a colleague told me, it's like everything around Indian country, of what I'm also learning, it is all comes across, all comes together at the speed of trust, and that to me is very important, because it's like even within myself making relationships with Mexicanos, or either Mexican Americans, the Chicanos, other communities, even with everybody here in the panel, there's a intercultural relationship that we have to build. And also, I come from a country where we were denied like plural nationality, and I say plural nationalism because oftentimes people think multiculturalism, but that's not the same. Like earlier, people were referring to, there's tribes, there's nations that have been here before even the nation state that we're now, are part of. So in that lack of acknowledgement, it's one of the things that we are trying to bring attention to through Indigenous Peoples Day, because different artists, presenters, speakers come from a place not as just like ethnic group, but it's actually from a specific Indigenous nations that have been here for centuries, and then in addition to that, it's a place for us to come being, even learn from each other. And then on the other hand, it's also to teach people who are not aware or sort of aware to celebrate with us in a way, at the same time, and learn how to be advocates, how to be allies. And then all those communities who are connecting, also to understand the right way to connect too. Because like it was mentioned here, it's not, even for myself, I cannot just speak for the Mapuche or for the Picunches, because of my experience. It shapes me, but I can also speak and advocate and how you say, like, bring a voice, because it's like an elder told me from the Mexica community was like, you're the only one here, so you have to speak, you need to share the stories, nobody knows about us, from all the way south, of the continent. So it was like, it's a bit of a responsibility, but also with respect and with a lot of humility as well, because it's like, it comes with, it's what we're dealing with, at least in this context, is much larger, than ourselves. And like our, Cornelia was saying, or Peter and Jack will be sharing too, and Eugene, the experiences very unique to their nations, because they were experienced differently. The way of colonization happened and the invasion, it came through stages. And then and that's why we bring the Taino, for example, to speak about that encounter of the first Spanish arriving into the islands, in the Caribbean islands, because it's also that first contact, it impacted how we are and what's going on today. And it's similar to the Lenape, similar to the communities in the farther south, So there's like that level of understanding and coloniality that we are trying to dismantle. And then at the same time, when it comes to schools and teachers, we've been doing a lot of coalition building workshops in order to actually dismantle the idea of the Indian too, because that on the one end, I understand that it brings a lot of pride, or has been taken to, create identity, but it's also one of the stereotypes that has also caused a lot of harm across the whole continent, because you go to Chile, you go to Argentina, Mexico, there's Indians, but at the same time, how it's used, in my country, it's like a derogatory term. So, but we are taught to say what nation you're from, what region you're from, what community you're from. Those are first and foremost most important. And that's something that within the, in United States, also at an educational level, there's a lack of understanding because of policies that that been enacted to erase the Native American history, and therefore it erased the Indigenous history, because the borders of, either you go to between United States, Canada, or Mexico, United States, those borders from the historical context, from the tribal history, it's far, it goes back in time, and it's also still present.
First, the Museum of Indian Culture. They're, like I said, they have, a museum, of course, up there in Allentown, and, they have Delaware, Lenape artifacts, and a lot of history there, especially in that area, the Lehigh Valley. Like I said, that's up north, and one point in time, Lenape camp was there. And, like I said, the importance of that museum to my tribe and to the people of Lehigh Valley is, to educate, the people that the land that they live on was once inhabited by the Lenape, people, the Delaware people. And there's so much history there. And, like I said, for me to go up there, when I go up there and just walk around out there, and the hills and the little streams they have, it's so important to me. And at one point in time, somebody asked me, do you feel that? And I kind of looked at him, didn't know what he was talking about. And, I'm just taking it all in. He said, this used to be your land. And like I said, when I first moved out here, kind of had to all take it in, because, this was my ancestral homeland. It is my ancestral homeland. And I said, yeah. Now that you say that, I do. I mean, because some point in times, depending on where I'm at, I do feel stuff, and, kind of in tune with, Mother Nature and everything. And so, the importance of that museum being there for the Lehigh Valley, it's really important for the Lenape and the residents that live there to learn, the land that they're on. And we're doing a project up there. We're trying to get a Lenape village made up there. We are, in the works of doing that. The mayor of Allentown's involved, along with some other state representatives, trying to get the funding for it. But it's to bring, even the mayor, thought it was a great idea, to bring recognition, to that area, to bring tourists in. Like I said, most people have never seen a Native American. It blew my mind when I moved out here, and I didn't see any. And And as far as meeting people, I introduced myself, and they asked me, "Are you Native American?" I said, "Yes." And it blew their mind. Like I said, it was an eye-opening experience for me to be out here because, like I said, growing up in Oklahoma, you see, all kinds of Indians, pretty much everywhere you went. So the museum, like I said, it's very important to spread the word, spread the education of the Lenape that lived there. And, like I said, me being a speaker, I enjoy speaking about my tribe, sharing experiences, sharing the education, and that, people, need to learn about the past to go forward. I kind of use this, an arrow has to go backwards to go forward. And that's the cue right there. I mean, that's what has to happen. You have to go backwards to go forward. And now NAHA, the Native American House Alliance, became a member probably about a year ago. And, their purpose is to, help Native Americans, rather it be food or heating and, electricity, any little thing that they can do is their purpose. And, they've been doing a great job at what they do. Dealing with also with, some senators and some other state representatives about trying to, form some commissions and other things that'll help, the Native Americans. And, what we did Tuesday, going up there to Harrisburg, the state capitol, and Senator Street, passed that resolution about making November Native American Heritage Month. It was a real honor. It was a real honor to be invited there and to go there, and for the floor there at the Senate, everybody was clapping for us, and to be recognized. It's always a good thing to be recognized and appreciated. And that's what Native American House Alliance did.
Thank you so much for that. Such powerful information and great education. I just have one more question for the panel. Just your thoughts on, and just basically in your opinion, how can we as allies, the school district community, the Philadelphia community, how can we become better allies and support the Native American community and properly share your history and traditions?
By doing exactly what you're doing now. That is what you can do. One of the things that I will say, you're there at the Board of Education on Broad Street? Is that where your office
The
is?
school district of Philadelphia, on Broad.
Did you know that you're in on a part of a Lenape village? Did you know that?
I did not. I know this was Lenape land. I did not know it was right on top of like the village area.
Yeah, this is there. They had several different villages, and one of your areas is that area. The area where I live is one of the areas. They have also did excavation and digging in my area. SEPTA has done that, and they've come up with arrowheads, pottery, and different things like that, that they keep them and they put them in museums, and we know nothing about it.
That's right.
I mean, it belongs to the Lenape people, the Delawares. They should give it back to them. The other thing is that Penn Treaty Park itself was once a place where chiefs resided and they delegated. And I really feel that a movement should be started for them to have that back. The Europeans have had it long enough and they don't even know what to do with it. That was sacred ground. That was tribal ground. That elm tree was our elm tree before it was the Europeans' elm tree. That elm tree was probably there hundreds of years. Now it was hit by lightning and burned down, and that's the a sapling of it that's growing there now, but it's not even being taken care of. Something that important. I mean, why don't they take the Liberty Bell and just cast it aside and let people do whatever they want to do with it? They don't want that to happen. So that tree, that area needs to be taken care of. And that's, I think I have to get off now, and that's probably all I have to say for the moment. And
Mhm, mhm.
I'm sorry if I hurt anybody's feelings, but I had to say that.
Wanishi,
Thank you,
Wanishi.
Cornelia. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, I think listening is a key thing, and you know, participating in these things, advocating for these things, asking questions. What happened here? You know, what is this place? Where can I find more information about you know, the place where I live? And so, you know, in my area, we have a place called Anacostia. Anacostia coming from our language, which we don't even have our language anymore. We have to use Jack's language. We use the Lenape when we speak in ceremony and when we wish to convey like that. And so Anacostia means good trading place, good trading place. So our people, Piscataways, people in Maryland, always very neutral. You know, we're not like Eugene's tribe. It goes and takes over half the Western United States. Hey. We stay at home. We don't try to bother. So, so it's important to understand the history of place and the spirituality of place, where you are, where you're from, where you're born.
Yeah, I want to just very briefly, I echo what Peter saying about land, you know, acknowledging the land, acknowledging the people, acknowledging the traditions that are local or regionally, because it's also very important. So in this context where we are, which is Lenapehoking, and it's like the territory where the ancestors of Jack and other, you know, communities that within, or tribes within the region, they play a big role, you know, in the history of United States that it's not been shared, you know.
That's
So
right.
for so I'm hoping, my hope, you know, and I hope actually of our organization is that over time we also want to be able not only, you know, fight for Indigenous peoples day statewide, you know, which is a bit of like a like one step, you know, because then a city can then become more accountable, you know, but it's also for you know, instituting like a mandate, you know, at state level that there needs to be tribal history in schools, so that way the Lenape tribes, Lenape nations can step in, you know, and guide that process. It's extremely important. The relationships are, and building those relationships are very important. Takes time, you know.
Yeah.
And then and I actually is, I have visited, because of Eugene, visited South Dakota and other states, you know, in the country. They are farther along, even in Washington, you know, that are now like teaching, you know, this important historical moment, but also from the perspective of the tribes, you know. So the other part of it, I guess, like a lesson is to, for the general public, is that all of this takes time, takes a lot of trust, a patience, but a dedication to be committed to create those relationships with the tribal members and the people who were the stewards and are still the stewards, you know, of this land. But they need to, you know, understand that process.
That's right. And you see how we treat women. You know, most of these tribes on the East Coast are matriarchal. That means the women were in charge. And so we respect our women. We're never violent. We listen to them. We care about them. We look after them. We protect them. That's our role as men, you know, to create this environment so that women can have the vision for our future as a people. And so this is really important, what you've seen here.
You know, as far as traditions, you know, probably not too much, because that's kind of held to the best, growing up, you know, having, I had, you know, friends, you know, white and Indians. And so I'm sitting there watching TV, cowboy Indian movie with my friend. And, you know, the guy on the TV would say something in Indian, and my friend asked, what did he say? I said, I don't know. I said, you know, he's a different tribe. It's not, you know, international language that we know what each other tribe members are saying. And then, but, you know, like I said, You know, and another question would be, you know, do you have an Indian name? And I do. And of course they ask, you know, what is it? But you're not to share that. You know, that there's a few things that we as Native Americans have that haven't been taken from us. You know, as time has gone by, you know, we've been stripped of our identity. The Native American kids were taken from their families and put to boarding schools, and they, you know, were not allowed to speak their language and had to cut their hair, and they had to pick a English name out of a book or the Bible, you know, and like I said, you know, there's certain things that we keep close to the vest and not to share. And, you know, that's our beliefs, that's our culture, that's our traditions. As far as anything else y'all can do to help would be, you know, there's some stuff in the works as far as, you know, maybe organizing something, you know, to happen, but, you know, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag or anything, but we would need support. We would need bodies, you know, to support this, you know, plan that we have, and people to stand with us. Because, you know, the thing is, you know, there's not that many Native Americans out here in Philadelphia, you know, believe it or not. And so the few that we do have, you know, we would need more support. And, you know, like I said, you talk about education in the schools. I met my wife when I moved to Florida. Like I said, I'm from Oklahoma. I moved to Florida, and Florida up here. And I met my wife out there, and she's from Southwest Philly. So, you know, I was asking her about what she learned in school as far as Native American history. She said, nothing really, not much at all. And more people I've talked to, you know, ask them same questions, you know, especially around this month. Everybody's wanting to learn this month only. Only in November, you know, they want to learn about Native American history. And usually I'm pretty busy during November with, you know, speaking engagements and so forth. But there's not, you know, like I said, this is historical as far as, like I said, there's so much history here, and that people don't know about it. Some of the statues that are here, you know, Chief Tamanan, they're on Front Market Street, and there's another statue, forgot where that's at. But, you know, like I said, Lenape, you know, chief, Lenape leaders, even up there on the city hall, you know, that people don't look around. People, you know, pass it by and take it for granted. And, you know, they don't know the history that's behind that. Why is that Native American up there with, you know, William Penn and so forth? And why is that eagle, you know, statue over there? And what does it represent? These are the questions. And, you know, stuff like that needs to be taught in school, especially here in Philadelphia, about your surroundings and the historical value of each, you know, statue that's here. And also, you know, why is it facing that way? You know, there's always stories behind something that people don't understand or don't care to even, you know, investigate about it. Just, you know, look at it and go on about their way. But like I said, back to the education part, like I said, even growing up in Oklahoma, and like I said, it wasn't a class of just, you know, we had a history, but it wasn't our history. There was always a little part of, you know, Columbus Day that was coming up, or Thanksgiving. You know, when was the first Thanksgiving, and the Pilgrims, and, you know, the Indians were there. Columbus came, and, you know, all that's really, you know, Columbus especially detrimental to the Native Americans. And, you know, of course, you know, the mayor made Columbus Day, you know, Indigenous Peoples Day last year. And there was a, you know, big hoopla about it because Columbus statue's over here in Marconi Park. And like I said, people didn't know about Columbus and what he did to the Native Americans. You know, they just took it for granted. You know, he discovered America in 1492. Heck, I got a shirt that says I've been fighting terrorism since 1492. You know, it's a, you know, you look into Columbus, you know, and that's the history, that's the education that needs to be taught. There's always another side of the story. And, you know, school and education is one way, you know, they teaching it one way and not getting the other side of the story. Like myself, I mean, I'd be more than happy to educate them on my side of the story. Because like I said, there's always, you know, another side to the coin. And, but education, I mean, I've spoke for an organization up north on state lines of New York and Pennsylvania. And that they had troubles up there because there's a family that's, you know, goes back to the 1800s, and they kind of run this town and they kind of regulate what's being taught in their schools. I mean, it's a little town. So, and, you know, the panel that I'm talking for, Jack, you know, our hands are tied because we got to push this through them. They got to okay it for us to teach it in our schools. You know, it's not right. I mean, you know, it's not right, but that family has to protect themselves and their, you know, their families from way back then about what they did to the Indians. You know, they had them as slaves and indentured servants and took their land. And so that family there in that town, you know, kind of runs things. And like I said, even the library, they're all, their hands are tied. This is what this panel is telling me, you know, Jack, we have to pass everything to this family, and they're not, you know, letting us, you know, teach, you know, Native American history in the school. Certain books are in their library because of them. They don't want the history of their family getting out and, you know, what they did. So as far as education in the public schools, I mean, it can be just a 1 month education program. It has to be taught to year after year after year, just like math and English and so forth. So I'd like to see, you know, more Native American history in the schools besides, you know, just the month of November or September. And like I said, I mean, even when I grew up in Oklahoma, I learned my history from my parents, my grandfather, my aunts and uncles. That's how I learned my history. And, you know, of course, you know, I'd come home from school and say, hey, you know, this is what I learned today. And, well, you learned one side of it. Let me sit down and let me tell you our side of it. That's how I learned my history.
Thank you for that, Jack. Definitely appreciate it. My final question for the panel is what message would you like to leave with the viewers as it relates to Native American history, education, and traditions? What message do you have for those who may view this?
Well, you know, like I said earlier, remember the past, honor the past, and shape the future. We as a people need to do that, need to remember, you know, the past going forward. The past, you know, can be difficult, but you learn from your mistakes, you learn from the past, and going forward, you know, you can correct it. You know, people always say, you know, history will repeat itself, but it's how it's going to repeat itself. Not in a bad way, you know, change it. You know, like I said, shape the future. And, you know, like I said, education, you know, there's so many books out there. There's so much out there now, you know, YouTube and internet, man, you know, you can see anything, learn anything these days. You know, like I said, me growing up was, you know, kind of restricted as far as what I learned, but book wise and so forth, I learned from listening, you know, listening to people that knew. And that's the whole thing, you know, the kids in schools and stuff, you know, they need to listen. They need to, you know, broaden their mind, broaden their horizon. Like I said, growing up in Oklahoma, you know, I knew, you know, most Native Americans there won't leave Oklahoma. I mean, some of them never been on planes. I lived in Florida and talked to my cousins back home, you know, and invited them out there to Florida. I said, man, you got to see the ocean. You got to see the beach. I said, I'll buy a plane ticket out here. And they said, no, you know, we'll drive, but, you know, we ain't flying. And, you know, like I said, for me, getting out of Oklahoma, I knew there was more out there. And at that point in time, two sisters lived in Florida, and I went out there to see them for a week. And then when I came back to Oklahoma, I decided, you know, I'm moving. You know, I've seen something, I want to see more. And that is where, you know, the education comes in, is that there's more out there. There's more to a story. There's more to a picture. You just have to use your mind and look into it. You know, turn the page, you know, just look past what you see and kind of dive into the meaning of it all. Just because that picture shows the sun, what's the story behind that? You know, don't take it for face value. Don't take anything for face value until, you know, you kind of investigate what you're looking at or reading to make sure it's true. I want to get back to, if I may, growing up in Oklahoma. You know, I was in first grade, so that puts me, you know, about being 7 or 6 or 7. So, you know, I've heard other people talk, you know, on this panel. You know, I grew up Indian. I grew up that way. I did not find out later in life that I might be part Indian or that I'm Indian. You know, I didn't question my father and mother about being Indian. I knew I was. And so in first grade, you know, like I said, we have ceremonies that we do in the spring and the fall. And it's like a religious retreat, I guess you would say, in, you know, terms now. But I would be out of school, you know, for a couple of days. And so, like I said, first grade, when I was old enough to handle a, you know, a rifle, you know, I was taught and everything, safety and so forth. I was able to go with, you know, my rest of my tribal members on this retreat and participate. This was part of my culture. This is my tradition. This is a ceremony. And so I started going with my brothers and my dad and did that, you know, every year, you know, all through school. But I think when I recognized, I think it was about 7th grade, so I'm about 13, the teachers knew, Jack, you're going to be out for a couple of days next week. I know it's fall. And they knew. And they, you know, every year after that, my teacher, come springtime, Jack, I got your homework assignments ready for you for next week. They knew. And like I said, we had land out there, but we would have to cross over somebody else's land, and, you know, but we're being, you know, indivisible, you know, we're being, you know, taken back in time and doing, you know, things we did, you know, back in the ancestor days that not to be seen. I mean, we'd have to cross roads and everything, but, you know, we would do it, and, you know, being real Native Americans, you know. So, you know, we'd be hunting out there, and, you know, we'd run across, you know, maybe a farmer or somebody. And there was one point in time where we all had to, there's probably about 10 of us all in our little hunting party, and we all had to lay in the grass and lay in the bushes, and because these 2 people on horseback, maybe looking for their cattle or something, but they were right among us. I mean, I could move and see them, you know, right there. And they just, you know, rode on by and never seen us. And, you know, somebody looked up, say, all right, they're gone. And, you know, 10 of us stood up, and they was right there amongst us. I mean, like I said, that's getting back to, you know, our ancestor ways, and that's the way we did things, you know. And, but, you know, like I said, getting back to school, you know, the teachers knew that. They respected that. They knew what we were doing, the time of year we were doing it. And even the people that, you know, like I say, we crossed their land sometime, they knew, and they knew the reason for it. They respected it. And, you know, they didn't really come out in their land like looking for us. You know, they didn't do that. They respected what we were doing. And, but like I said, growing up, you know, I grew up Indian. I grew up learning my traditions and my culture at an early age. and carried it all through school, because I think I might have been 5th grade was the last time we put on a little powwow. You know, powwows, Indian kind of dance performance, you know, with songs and different dances. And there's this one dance called the hoop dance, which, you know, he used like hula hoops. And my sister and my brother were the ones that did that. And you can, you know, of course, YouTube them now and Google it and so forth, but it's so pretty that what they can make out of these hula hoops and how many hula hoops they can use. They can make you know, picture of an eagle with the hoops, Mickey Mouse, all kinds of different, you know, pictures that they can make with these hoops. And, you know, like I said, you know, back to taking it for granted, you know, being Native American, I look back and, you know, for somebody to see that and, you know, and like I said, I mean, I remember, you know, putting on these powwows for the schools and that all the little kids were like in awe. You know, they never seen it before. They've never experienced it before. You know, powwows now are more out in the open, and you know, you can go to one, and you know, it's open to the public and everything. But certain ceremonies and other, you know, stuff we do are, you know, just, you know, for tribal members only. But like I said, you know, I grew up Indian. You know, that's for me. I am full-blooded. I am Delaware and Shawnee. The Shawnees from Western Pennsylvania, and of course Delaware are from here in New Jersey. But I am enrolled with the Delaware Nation. You have to be enrolled in, you know, in a tribe, I guess. You know, like I said, I had to pick, but my dad and my other sister enrolled us in the Delaware Nation. The rest of my siblings are enrolled in the Shawnee. And growing up, I had to, you know, Shawnee side, you know, we did this traditionless, you know, stuff, and then also learned the Delaware side of it. And say like in the springtime, they'd play stickball, you know, in the Delawares, which is now called lacrosse. And then in fall here, we play Indian football on the Shawnee side. The women could run with it and the men could only kick it. And of course, you couldn't tackle your hand, or, you know, there's relations involved, the rules that, you know, of the game that you can't do and so forth. But I mean, like I said, I mean, the games that we play, the seasons that we play them in, you know, and of course, being out here, I have a distant cousin, he lives out here. And other than that, you know, I'm kind of, you know, by myself as far as, you know, Native American and my tribal members. But, you know, like I said, schools need to really take a look at the curriculum and teach them about Native American history, not only for the month of November, but, you know, throughout the school year. Because it's so important and so detrimental out here, because this is, you know, where it all started. Everybody started in their own place, and my tribe started here in Philadelphia and New Jersey.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that, Jack.
Eugene, can you speak some Lakota for us so that the children in Philadelphia can appreciate the language?
Well, just like well, you said,
Give them a prayer or a greeting or something for the children of Philadelphia watching this video in Lakota, please.
okay, well, Pilamia means thank you. You know, well, the best way I can maybe is to do 1 to 10 in Lakota. Because 1 is I'll say it in English first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, in Lakota it'll be Manji, Numpa, Yamani, Dopa, Zampta, Shakpe, Shakowi, Shagloha, Napchunka, Ukchemina. Okay, that's the 10. Then 11 is Wanji, is Ake Wanji, Ake Numpa, Ake Yamani, Ake. Ake means again. Again one. Again two. Again three. Again. Then when you get to 20, you say Nupa. Wikshemana. 10 is Wikshemana. Okay. Wikshemana Nupa. Okay. 30 will be Wikshemana Yamani. 40 will be Wikshemana Topa. 50 will be Wikshemana Zampta. Okay. And then 21 will be Wikshemana Nupa Waji. Wikshemana Nupa Yamani. Wikshemana Nupa Topa. Wikshemana Nupa Zampta will be 25. All the way to 100. You speak like that all the way to 100. When you get to 100, you say Opawira. Opawira means you turn it back around. Opawira Waji. That's 101. Opawira Nupa. 102. Okay, just like that. And then the school is Owayewa, where you go to learn how to write. Right, Owayewa means writing. That's how you say Owayewa. Owa means right. Owayewa means the school. Okay, so anyway, and then good morning will be Hihani Washte. Hihani is the morning. Hihani means morning. Washte means good. Hihani Washte. Okay. Okay, and then we chonka are the sun, we call it we. Just like we wang wachi, sun dance. We wang, we look at the sun. Wachi means dance. We wang wachi, that means sun dance. So when you say noon in Lakota, we chonka means the middle. Chonka means middle. We chonka. The we is in the middle. That's noon. Okay. And then in the afternoon be stayetu. That's evening. Ihani we chonka stayetu. And in between Wichunka and Stayetu is noon. So that's Wichunka Sam. That means past. Sam means past. Past mid-afternoon. That's or midday. Past midday is Wichunka Sambia. That's afternoon. Okay, so back in the day when they didn't have no clocks, you know, if you're going to be somewhere in 2 days in the afternoon, you would say, Ampetu Nupa, Wichonka Samya, or Ukte. That means I'll be there in 2 days after the sun passes the middle.
Oh.
So you know, it's, say things like that, you know, when they had no clocks, you know, you be there at that in 2 days in the afternoon. That's how you say, but you know, so people will be saying they're waiting for you after 2 days afternoon, after the sun passes noon, midpoint. They'll be waiting for you there. So they don't tell whenever you get there, you know, after the sun is in the middle. After that, you'll be there sometime between there. Because there was no time, but that's why people always saying Indian time. I'll be there at 2 o'clock Indian time, you know.
Sometime in the afternoon, yeah.
Yeah, sometime in the afternoon.
How do you say grandfather in Lakota?
Kukashila.
Tunkashila. And so you say
even our grandfather up there in heaven, grandfather.
Tunkashila. So if I were to say
a lot of our Sundance songs start with that. Like that. Grandfather pity me, I'm sending a voice. That's what I mean. And then you start with the other songs.
So if the kids wanted to say thank you, grandfather, to you, they would say Pila Maya Tunkashila.
Right.
Pila Maya Tunkashila. Pila Maya. That means thank you, grandfather. So all the boys and girls can say that to Eugene. Pila Maya Tunkashila.
What's that? And then we don't have no goodbye in Lakota, because a goodbye is something like, forever or something, So we used to say toksha, which means in a white, remember, a language later. That's what toksha means. Later, we'll see each other again, because I'll see you someplace, maybe just like a Penn Treaty Park, or over at NAHA, or
In
over
Harrisburg.
at Chihuahua, because I'll see you again sometime. So just say toksha.
Doksha.
Ake. Toksha ake means again. Ake. Wachiankinte. Wachiankinte means I'll see you. I'll see you later. That's what it means. Toksha wachiankinte.
Doksha.
Okay.
Wokcha.
Yeah. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
That's what it says. There's no goodbye.
Oh,
So in short, we all say doksha.
doksha.
See you later. But there's three Lakota dialects. There's a Dikhota, Lakota, and a Nakota. We say with a T, doksha, and Dakota say with a D, with a do, doksha, and the Nakota with the N, no, noksha. Doksha, doksha, and noksha.
And
That's the different dialects.
you described yourself as a Lakota language warrior. What is that?
I'm fighting to keep the language alive. They have that every year, Lakota warrior, Lakota language warriors, they get together and, keep the language going. There's a lot of people always, I haven't went to the last 3 years, I think. First time I went was me and Mabel went, and she took the beginner course and I took the teacher course, and I was helping a lot of beginners, in my group there. There was about 5 people in my group that the teachers that we spoke fluently. And there were some college people that were teachers there that knew how to speak Lakota, but they didn't know how to speak it as fluently as we did. And use the words in the same sentence, how to use it and how to pronounce it. They learned from the books, so they was pronouncing it a little differently. So during that course, we all got together and we taught them how to pronounce it right and use it in a certain right. So we taught teachers how to speak Lakota fluently and with the right dialect and the correct way to use it in a sentence. So we got them ready to go back to their school to start teaching it better, with more accuracy, I guess, something like that.
2 questions. Would the Lakota Warrior Project, the conference, would it come to Philadelphia? Would they come to Philadelphia?
I don't know, man. It's
a distance.
It's regional, I guess, because this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in Denver because there's a lot of Lakotas going Denver too.
Yeah.
That's just Lakotas usually were way out there in Colorado then too. Well, you heard the Sand Creek Massacre, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too far from Denver.
Yeah.
So that's far, a little bit further south than that. Lakota used to roam way down there to where Cathedral Rocks were in Colorado Springs.
I told you, Kyle.
So that's as far as south as we go. Cathedral Rocks.
Sure it is. Sure it is.
Or how do you say that place, Garden of the Gods? As far down south as there, we meet up with the Indians, the natives that come from the south, with their pottery and the corn and squash and all that. And then the Utah Indians, the Ute Indians come that far. And the Indians from the west or east, Kiowas and all them other ones, they come over. We all meet there, then we trade and stuff like that. We bring arrowheads and then how do you call that black rock, obsidian, for knife blades and all that.
Yeah. My second question, Mabel, if you speak Lakota, could you please speak Lakota? Oh, yeah, I would love to hear that.
I'm bad. I'm the worst student ever in language. I have been
Is
trying
it?
to learn my own language too. Mine wasn't good. Terrible.
Oh, wow.
But I'm in this. I guess I would have to pass on that one. because
Okay, okay.
I would
It
have
would
to
be
like write it
inspirational, though.
down, and then like I can tell you.
It
Although
would
when
be
I talk to
inspirational.
Eugene, sometimes it comes, a little bit like
Okay.
if
Yeah,
I
it
say,
is.
"Hey, hey, honey, what's there?" for Eugene, then
It's definitely
he will respond
such a
something.
beautiful language for sure.
It's beautiful.
Hopefully by next year, we'll all be speaking a lot more Lakota.
Maybe you will
I
be
would
better,
love that.
Peter.
I
can
know.
see. I can
Now
see
that
you're
I know
like,
what Eugene is about, yeah, I'm ready for my language lessons.
yeah. I can understand it though. It's really cool. You start,
It
you
is.
picking it up when it's spoken, either
Yeah.
in live speaking or when it's
Yep.
being sung. I recognize the
Oh,
words or
it's so
verb,
beautiful.
the form. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could get him
He
to
sings
like,
along with our Sundance songs too.
yeah. You
Yeah,
have to.
actually last night we were like practicing that. She was
Yeah.
teaching me.
Yeah. No, if you go to Sundance, you have to, because there's nothing else to do really if you're not Sundancing. So you have
He
to.
listens to the songs all day while you dance.
Yeah, that's right.
Pick it up.
That's right.
A lot of our young children back home, they all know how to sing. Really, really fantastic, really good, but they don't understand the words. So that's where I come in and teach them what the words mean. So they have a understanding of what the words mean. They're all prayers.
Yeah.
So those words mean something. It's just not a song.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate all of the insight and knowledge. I just want to send just a special thank you to all of our panelists and thanking them just for their stories, perspective, and their and this wonderful education that we received. We'll make sure to include all resources, programs, events. We even have a few videos to share as well from the group that they mentioned before, and we'll be sure to highlight that through our various communications. We'll make sure that this video is available on our DEI YouTube channel, so you can watch it at your convenience anytime you want. So we'll be sure to do that. We're asking folks to please follow the DEI page and our cultural heritage pages for information on other events and resources. And please stay tuned for more information and upcoming panels, events, initiatives, and collaborations in the future. So thank you to all the panelists again, and we appreciate the time.
Oh, Wanishi.
Talk to me.